Welcome back. Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And I am here continuing this journey. Y'all already know my first love is hip hop. So I have somebody that is grounded in Detroit hip hop for sure. And carrying on, y'all gonna see a lot more of these people that grab the mic and do what they do with rhymes, patterns together, and freestyles and flows and production and scratching and so much more. I have the brother P Gruv in effect. P Gruv, how you feeling?
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes,
How are you?
sir. Yes, sir. It's been like a minute. Like I told you, I was like, yo, I would love to get you in studio because you've been in so many studios and know a lot about that Detroit story in hip hop.
Yes, sir.
From, you just touched a little bit from the Inner C and working with so many acts of that origin of a lot of hip hop. We thinking like early 90s on in Detroit.
Yeah, I came up in a little bit before the Rhythm
Hmm.
Kitchen era,
Hmm.
the hip hop shop, the Mahogany, the 1515 Broadway. That kind of era was where we get like the D12s, Eminem, Slum Village, the
Hmm.
Elzai. Um, Even before then though, with Jack Frost, uh, Detroit's Most Wanted, um, the Chip Ahoy,
Hmm.
you remember them?
Nah, man, but Nikki D, we've been doing some of these interviews. We did a series, myself as me and Sterling Toes, Detroit is Different Family, most definitely, where we study the like a journey of some of the hip hop history of Detroit. And that was
Mm.
really fun. And a lot of y'all music came up in the mix of this
Yeah.
and the
So,
production. So let's start a little bit there. Hip
mm.
hop. What was that like just forming the group?
Well, it was, like, a thing that started with me and my partner in, high school,
Mm.
you know what I'm saying? We got into a group and then, we, like, wanted to get a DJ and, I was cool with DJ Los, and
Mhm.
DJ Los introduced us to, DJ Dez,
Mm.
and then when we met Dez, he was so dynamic that I mean, at the time, it was, the group was called P Gruv and Sleepy D,
Mm.
and then when we met Dez, it was like, "This guy is crazy, so we need to have a group name," because just being P Groove and Sleepy D, that
They
was
honoring the DJ.
yeah, and not only was he not just a DJ, he was a producer, he can also rap, Dez is like, Dez is the embodiment of hip hop as
Mm.
well, like graffiti, I think he probably even was breakdancing at one point in time, you know what I mean? But he like, know how to play percussions. He's like,
Mm.
classically, I mean not classically trained, but well,
One hell of a percussionist.
yeah, how would you
I would say like one hell of a percussionist is
yeah,
all
you
I
know what
would
I'm
say.
saying? It's like if you got levels of it, like
Mhm.
he don't play
Yeah, like play around,
yeah, he don't
like it's not
tinker with
jam
it.
session.
He don't tinker with it. It's
Mhm.
like he really can like do those rhythms, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like he got the whole theory with hand movements and stuff like that. Stuff that you don't even think about when you just playing a drum.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But yeah, he was great. So we just decided to come up with a group name. And then that's when we came up with the inner circle and it became the Enna C.
All right. So now that you gave that introduction, we're gonna do the classic Detroit is different. Y'all family origins. How far deep is your people to the city of Detroit? You first, second, third generation Detroit?
I am s I think I'm first generation Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah,
Whereabouts y'all people?
my people came from, Alabama,
Whereabouts?
close to the Gulf. It's,
Mm.
Monroeville, Alabama.
Monroeville, Alabama, close to the Gulf Coast. Man, so that's from the bottom on up. What brought
Yeah,
them up?
they made, a book called To Kill the Mockingbird. That was, like, a classic book that was
Mhm.
written in Monroeville. It was an author in Monroeville that actually wrote that book.
Mm. Yeah, we had to read that in ninth grade.
Yeah, so that was, what I'm saying, one of those things that, they was telling me about, Monroeville, but it's a small town, like, if you blink, you'll be done shot through it, you know what I
Mhm,
mean? But everybody knew everybody, and I would go down there in the summertime,
mhm.
and literally, like, if I did something, by the time I made it back to my grandma's house, she already knew what I did,
Mm.
and, I was being disciplined for it, you know what I mean? But
Alright, and they kinda knew you because like, they just knew you.
yeah, they knew
Mhm, the
my
family.
family and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So, yeah, it's like both my mother and father grew up in that town.
What led for him to come up to the D?
Well, my father, he was real mischievous and, what they would call a crazy nigga.
Okay.
So they had to get him up out of there before, the lynch mob came for him. So he actually, like, landed in Detroit with my, great uncle.
Okay, and that's the story of, so many others. We think of even Coleman Young, and we think of, so many others that left Alabama from asylum because something went left where a lynch mob was chasing them, or the police or something. Let's put it like this: death was at door. So then at night, you sneaking up to Detroit.
Yeah, yeah, in a nutshell, he pulled out a knife on somebody that
Okay,
was supposed to be,
like a higher up or something.
well, no, he was, like, mischievous, and he got released from jail and was supposed to been doing work, and the guy who actually got him to doing the work was kinda mistreating him,
Mm.
and he got to a point where he was like, "Alright, I'm not gonna take it." And it kinda was about to go real left, but the guy knew my grandmother and kinda, like, didn't go so hard, kinda let everything, uh, de-escalate.
Yeah,
So,
so
that's
that
when he
led
made
to.
his exit, yeah.
All right. So coming up here, where did what side of town did he move to? Where he
Um,
said his
the East Side,
hmm,
the East Side Detroiter.
okay. Whereabouts?
I would say, mm, it's probably over in the Mac and I say Kercheval area,
Okay.
something like that.
All right. So like I think of that like the southeastern neighborhood a little bit like that. Or it could, I guess it could be considered KC and everything. Um
Yeah, you got it right, Southeastern.
mhm.
A lot of my cousins went to Southeastern.
Okay. All right. And did you have other did he have other family up here already? Or was it one of those things where it was like,
Yeah,
no, I'm
my
going to the
my
D?
my great uncle. That's
Okay.
that's who was able to
Get
take
them
him
on up.
in.
Okay.
Yeah, so he'd have some place to stay.
All right. And now with your journey, I'm guessing, and I guess, well, even before that, so your father settles in Detroit. I'm guessing so much work at the time, he's able to find work, but what's his path?
Well, no, he came up here and actually, like, they was doing some, like, they was
I got you.
they was doing some stuff, you know what I'm saying,
They
that
fought making his own way.
landed him in jail,
Mm,
like,
mm.
he actually the first time he seen me was in a courtroom.
Wow. Ain't that
So,
something?
yeah, it was like for the first 8 years of my life, you know what I'm saying, he was actually, in prison.
Your mom, your
Mhm.
mom's people, were they already in the D?
No, they
'Cause she
all
came up
was
that
yeah, she came up with
after.
him.
Okay. Alright, so, so with that, just with your great uncle and everything like that, right there on the east side, figuring out what would happen, making those adjustments, what house do you remember growing up in
I grew up with
over there?
with my, godmother,
Mhm,
who is my auntie, but never married
mhm.
my great uncle.
Okay.
But, they was cool, and she took my mother in
Mhm.
while my father was gone, and then once my mother got her thing together, then, we moved into, like, a two-family flat over on, Maxwell.
Okay, so still staying east.
Yeah, it was still east. Yeah.
Alright. Alright, what do you remember about that neighborhood with the kids and the time and everything going on?
Well, what reminds me of, like, how life is. It's like, you know what I'm saying, it could be short
Mm,
because I got, like, childhood friends that didn't make it to their teens,
mm,
you know what I mean, that just living on that side of town,
mhm.
and, yeah, that's one of the things that kinda, like, I mean, I remember, like, being a child playing outside, things like that. But, one of my best friends, you know what I'm saying, he passed, like, really early,
Mm.
and that's one of the things that kinda, like, stands out, you
A
know?
and what era, like, is this? Is this, like, is this early '80s? What era?
Yep, the '80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, so '80s kid, what school you going to?
I went to, Sister Claire Muhammad.
Mm.
You familiar with Sister Claire Muhammad?
Nah, but I'm guessing that's gotta be a parochial school.
It was over on, Van Dyke and, let me see, Gratiot. It was not too far from Gratiot.
Okay, Van Dyke, Gratiot. Okay, I'm looking at that intersection right now.
Yeah, and then it was like this it's like a burgundy building that's over there. That's
Mhm.
that was the school.
Okay, 'cause not far from where the last Depours was too.
Yep. So I remember like when my father he was released, he came out a Muslim.
Hmm,
And the number one masjid, I remember running around there and they actually like had a school setting there and then they got Sister Claire Muhammad going.
mm.
And then I remember going there.
Okay,
Like, up to, like, maybe the 6th grade until we, moved to Highland Park.
okay. So from there to HP and Muslim Nation of Islam?
Yeah.
Okay. What was the Nation of Islam like for your family at the time?
It was just he came out of jail, renamed everybody,
Mhm,
and pretty much, started, imamming,
mm,
and then he fell out with the community
mhm.
for whatever reasons. I wasn't, aware enough
To know at the time what.
know about the politics, anything like
Mhm.
that, but he started a restaurant called Arknar Tunes.
Okay.
And Akhenaton's was basically a place where, uh, people could eat that didn't, serve pork because it wasn't nothing like that in the community.
And if you ever went to Aknar Tunes, one of my favorite restaurants for soul food ever. Like I asked you, I think Aknar Tunes dressing may be like the best dressing I've ever had in my life. Like, man, oh man. And barbecue chicken, like, oh man, barbecue chicken, dressing, some collard greens. I wish that place was still around.
Yeah, it was some real good eating.
Yeah, and then also like you walk inside Aknar Tunes and it would be the food, and then the brothers would be off to the side always selling like DVDs, CDs, and
Yeah,
tapes
that
of
was Bayon. He's still a minister of information out here, you know what I mean? I
mhm.
just seen him at the Harvest Festival.
Yep.
Yeah, that brother, like, put me up on all this stuff that's happening now, I knew back in the '90s, you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like it's different when you actually, like, have those conversations or that information and then can watch it just play out, you
So
know? It's definitely different.
so I definitely wanna, ask this, watching your father get into entrepreneurship. I know where Aknar Tunes was, when I went there on
Mhm.
Woodward. What did it start at that location or did it start somewhere else?
No, that was the
Always the
location
location.
there. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. What was it like watching your father build a business?
It was like I said, I wasn't aware. I was just a shorty running around. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? It was not like if like if I could take the as I say, if we could go back in time and then I could be like talking to myself like, hey, pay attention to this and pay
Yeah.
attention to that, it'd have been different. But it was just like, I will say that working in an entrepreneurial environment is not as frustrating for me as it might be for people that's used to
A 9 to
a
5.
9 to 5. Yeah, it's a different type of thing, you know what I mean, where people is used to, okay, I know I'm gonna get this and get that, and then, working with in a business is different.
Mhm.
You just have to be there. You know what I'm saying, and show up. And sometimes it might not look like it's gonna work out that day, but then all of a sudden, boom, it works out that day. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Or just you just doing really well one day and then slow the rest of the. You know what I mean? It's just all types of variables, but that kind of thing, like, is like I guess in me. And even when I did get jobs, I always looked at uh how the place was ran, and I take note of that kind of stuff and try to apply it,
Mhm.
to my endeavors. You know what I mean?
Alright, so from there, hip hop.
Mhm.
When do you start connecting to hip hop? When does it start, like, saying, "Okay, I'm liking this?"
Well, Run DMC, I was a fan of Run DMC. I remember, I believe it was Rockbox.
Mhm.
I had seen that, like, on one of those, video shows that they show, like, at night, like, after hours or whatever, but I
Mhm.
think I was, like, in between a sleep state or whatever. I thought I was dreaming it, and then
Mm.
all of a sudden, years later, well, maybe a couple years later, I see the video, and it's like, that's what I
That's what
had
you saw.
seen, yeah, you know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? But, the movie, Beach Street,
Mm.
I started off, breakdancing. I really, what I'm saying, enjoy breakdancing. We used to do the cardboard stuff, and
Mhm.
it was like, a couple of kids in the neighborhood over there, by the restaurant, um, would jam, and we would all get down, and we would, like, stop the bus sometimes. Like, people actually, like, the bus driver would stop, you know what I'm saying, and just let people watch us,
Mm.
you know what I'm saying, like we was, really having a good time and doing our thing. So it was cool. I started off like that, breaking.
So from breaking, when do you get into rapping yourself?
Well, I believe that I was influenced by one of my father's, entre what's the word? Um, he decided to get into music
Hmm.
with an artist.
Mhm.
Where it was a lady who had actually wrote a couple of songs, and he liked the songs, and he had, maybe you can help me with the guy's name. It escapes me right now, but it was a keyboard player
Mhm.
for the, Dramatics.
Hmm. Key player for the dramatics. Let
Yeah,
me
the
think.
keyboard player, yeah,
Yeah.
he was into their production.
Man, I feel like calling Butch now, Los's fathers, because I know Butch would know.
Yeah, he
Mhm.
probably know who he is, and
Mhm.
then, the thing is George Clinton told him
Mhm.
that this hip hop thing is gonna be huge, and you need to, get into it.
So that's interesting. So your father, like, just kinda from the network, did he meet these people from the restaurant, or, like, how did he meet the artists?
Probably so. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? As far as the lady, I know she used to come into the restaurant.
Okay.
The keyboard player from the Dramatics, can't remember his name.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
my bad.
Mhm.
And the keyboard player is who talked. Well, him and George Clinton was talking. So when my father came and was like, "I got this lady, and she wrote these songs," he was like, "Okay, let's do it." So during that process, I got to hang out with the lady's son, and he would pretty much treat me like little bro.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because it was for a while, at least 8 years of my life, I was the only child,
Mhm.
and then I eventually had another brother.
Mhm.
Um,
But that's such a gap that it's
yeah,
like,
it's like
yeah.
really an 8 year gap,
Mhm.
but
You like uncle, brother.
yeah,
You know?
it was just literally because I got two other younger brothers, so I got three brothers,
Mhm.
and literally my son and my youngest two brothers, they all the same age.
Man, yep. There you go.
But, we was, hanging out, and, he'd take me all these places. So, this is what they telling me, like, we was always together and he would be playing with me and everything like that, and
Mhm.
I guess that's what influenced me to, rap.
Okay, because he would rap, I'm guessing.
Yeah, he would be doing his thing and, my father was playing the songs, I got to know the songs, but, just that whole interaction and just being around that.
Okay. And then you were in the studio at an early age too then, I'm guessing?
Yeah, but
Well, like, you were there, you
but
weren't
you know what?
performing,
You know
but you
what?
were there?
Now I think about it though, I can't, skip this part
Mhm.
because next door to the restaurant, it was a family, and me and the family, it's like it was 2 brothers and a sister, and we would play, you know what I'm saying, as shorties or whatever, and I started liking they sister.
And I'm guessing that's the breakdancing crew too, kinda.
Nah, they wasn't the break
They wasn't
dancers.
breakdancing with you, but they
Uh-uh.
was right there.
Yeah, they was cool.
Uh-huh.
But, Tasha was her name,
Mm.
and we actually put out a record, our first record with well, no, that wasn't our first record, but our first independent release as far as, like, what we did,
Mhm.
P Gruv and Sleepy D, featuring Tasha T, and
Mm.
she actually taught me how to rap.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting. See, there you go. The origins of Detroit hip hop. Women in Detroit hip hop in the
right.
origins. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So Tasha T taking some credit. She like, I was showing you how to say a bar. P Groove.
Yeah, yeah, she taught me how to rap,
Okay.
and, I was, like, into, uh making songs and things like that, and I decided to, uh, try to make tapes. So I would like beat on cans and stuff like that with my cassette recorder, and I re-record them and play it back, and then make another track. You know what I'm saying? I would just be overdubbing, making beats and stuff. And then my father was telling me, he was like, "Oh well, you need a keyboard." So he went out and got me a keyboard and stuff like that. And then, yeah, I guess from there, it just kind of snowballed. I went from that keyboard to a drum machine. And from that drum machine, next thing I know, I'm going to the studio and I'm working with other drum machines.
What how old are you at the time?
I'm literally like 11 or 12.
Wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're not even in high school yet.
Nah,
Mm.
nah.
Okay.
It was like my junior high friends. I had a group with them
Mhm.
that uh we was called the
Mhm.
team posse. And we was like
Guessing y'all like crisscross before crisscross even existed.
yeah, we was doing it like that. But it was 2 DJs and me and my partner Raymond,
Mhm.
RIP,
Mm.
boy Raymond Cato. Um we and RIP Chris Mays,
Mm.
you know what I'm saying? He was one of the DJs, but we was we was doing our thing, and we were going to the studio. Are you familiar with Roz Kente?
Mhm.
That
Most
was like
definitely.
that was like
Take no prisoners posse.
yeah, that was the first studio that I went to in Highland Park because we had moved to Highland Park,
Mm.
and Roz Kente was the first studio that we actually recorded in, and he had the reel to reels, and he showed us how to just track.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Learning about that stuff.
All right. So that's like middle. Where do you go for high school?
I went to Highland Park.
You went to HP. So you HP throughout. Okay. Did you
Yeah.
go to and you went, I'm guessing, to the Highland Park High School when it was remodeled and rebuilt and everything?
Yeah, the prison. Yeah, I was up in there, and
Okay.
I went to, Ford Middle
Mhm.
School.
Okay. All right. What was HP like when you was there with a polar bear?
HP was cool, you know what I mean? It was like, I didn't really much have school spirit,
Mhm.
because I was really deep into the music by
at
then.
that point? Because I mean, since middle school, carrying on, did the people in school kind of know that you were deep into the music?
Yeah, a couple of people did, like, that's where I met DJ Butter.
Mm,
That's where I met, Super MC.
hmm.
Um, I met Chaos and, from Chaos and Maestro,
Yeah.
and Chaos actually, um, told me about sampling.
Mm,
He was like, "You need to get a sampler,"
hmm.
and stuff like that. So it was like instead of doing schoolwork, I was in school with rolling manuals, trying to figure out how this stuff worked. You know what I mean?
Okay. So during that time, are you performing? Are you just in the studio? What's happening just on the hip hop scene?
Well, I mean, we performed like at the school functions and things like that.
Mhm.
I DJ'd a couple of school events. I learned how to DJ. Um,
So you picking up like each element of hip hop.
yeah, but I was always like artistic, so I
Mhm.
would I would draw all the time. But as far as like the dancing, the rapping, the beat making, and the DJing came and that really like elevated my production. I
Mm.
think that DJs make the best producers.
Well, you hearing things differently and knowing how people respond to them naturally.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where like even as I produce music, I will get with musicians and excuse
Mm,
I would get with musicians and they would maybe just play, but they wouldn't know where the moment is.
mhm,
You know what I mean? It's like you gotta let a musician be a musician and they gotta get it out. And then I identify that spot, like, okay, that right
mhm.
there, what you did there, that can rock. You know what I'm saying? That's that sweet spot. And you can get like, 4, 5 minutes, you know what I'm saying, out of
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? But it's like they can't identify it. They go to the moon and back and they shoot over to Jupiter and come back, you know what I'm saying? And it's awesome, you know what I mean? I
So
admire it.
in the world of funk, I'm gonna give that to people that follow it like how I love it because I love funk. I mean, hip hop, my favorite art form is so poured into funk. So I think you're gonna be able to echo this, and you may be able to share about it too, because
Mm.
it's one of the most sampled artists in hip hop is always James Brown.
Yeah.
So in James Brown, you got the James Brown work, then you got Pass the Peas with the JBs. So what the JBs did, the backing band for James Brown, which changed over often, but when they released the album, you have like the play of like it playing on and everything. Whereas like with the James Brown, you get like just that whole feel. Hence like on the one. So like that playing on as you talk about, I think you really get a great example of what that is when the JBs are just
That's
being
a
the JBs.
good way to look at that because, James Brown understood that, less is more.
Yeah.
And that's a producer, versus, what I'm saying, an artist or, just a musician, just, having
Yeah.
expression.
Yeah. Like Pass the Peas is amazing, but
Mhm.
it's nothing like Sex Machine,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
For people
Mhm.
that know the catalog of James Brown. And if you don't know the catalog of James Brown, then you should almost pause this and go reference both those songs and then come back to this.
Right, right.
Alright, so
Yeah, that's a great example.
in the mix of, the music now and that carrying on, what was the idea like at the time hip hop is growing into something and then just being in hip hop from Detroit? You weren't thinking like, "We gotta go to New York or we gotta go to LA," or what was the thought process as far as, like, what you wanna do with music?
It was just having fun,
Mm,
just experimenting and just creating. It wasn't really like ever a competitive thing.
mhm,
I think that maybe I would probably be a little more um, known if I looked at it from the competitive
mhm.
side of it. But it's always been like if it ain't fun, I didn't want to do it.
Okay. So, as you as you stay active in this as time goes on, and now we're, I guess, getting to Inner C coming about. So when does Inner C come together and get ready to release that first project?
Well, that was like, shortly after we, me and my partner that I was telling you I met in high school, we had put out a project with Tasha T,
Mhm,
and that record actually did, pretty good in the city.
mhm.
And then we met Dez, and then we decided to, make the group. So I would say like 90, 91,
Yeah,
around that time was when we released like our first project, and that was a 12-inch, and it had production from Amp Fiddler and Buzz Fiddler,
mhm,
R.I.P. both those brothers.
yeah.
And on the flip side of that, we had Jay Dilla.
How did you meet Amp?
I met Dilla. How did I meet Dilla?
Well, no, Amp, not Dilla. How did you meet Amp?
Oh, well,
Amp and
Amp.
Bubs.
I believe I met Amp um, with Dilla.
Okay, all collectively.
Yeah, because we was just getting into the MPC,
Mhm.
and he had one.
And which model the MPC is this?
It was the 60.
Okay.
Yeah, and we was learning how to use it.
Mhm.
So Amp was just like, one of those, I didn't think of it now, but he was like a music camp, really, you know what I mean? And he'd just let us just mess around in the studio,
Mm.
and he'd be upstairs doing whatever, and we just be down in the basement for hours. And sometimes I would go uh with James, and then other times it was like I started popping up,
Solo.
yeah, solo, and learning how to use the machine myself.
And let me say this, Amp, rest in peace. I think Amp may be like one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like with fashion, fly, and just even like knowing the timing of saying something. His performance, like real meticulous, but just always cool, but very creative. Was he like that when you met him then, like in process of growth? Because at the time, I'm
Yeah, he
guessing he was.
always he always been cool. You know what
Uh-huh.
I mean?
Mhm.
Always been cool. And he let me actually mix like a couple of his records, cuz by the time I had, got to that point where, I was working with him, I had been in like, several studios, and was learning how to mix and things like that. And that's another one of my loves. I love to engineer music. I like taking a recording and make it sound like a record, you know.
How did you learn that and how did you develop that skill?
Just being at the studio and sitting behind the board and just picking it up, just soaking it up with the different engineers.
And this is going back to Ross Kente on.
Yeah, from Roz getting Tente to what's the lady who wrote My Sharia Moore? Sylvia.
Sylvia Moy.
Yeah, her engineer Carlos. I work with him. ICP's producers, Mike Clark, out in Ferndale. He used to have a studio called the Temper Mill.
Yeah.
That's where I met Jack Frost out there when he was working on his project.
Okay.
That song "House That Jack Built." Mike
Mhm.
actually produced that, and I was, out there hanging out, learning, just everything about recording.
You ever work with, because going to HP, did you ever go and knowing Chaos, did you ever work with Maestro?
I worked with them, and I was in one of their videos. That was about it. But they had pretty much, had their whole thing
They whole
together.
crew with Butch and everybody in that, World One.
Yeah, so all that was coming together, and they pretty much had they thing solid. But he was putting me up on game, you know what I'm saying, as far as, like, equipment and stuff like that.
Okay. So as you're watching this whole thing kind of come together, um, after high school, where are the spots that you perform in? Because that was the one thing that definitely stood out a whole lot. You mentioned the Rhythm Kitchen and definitely Hip Hop Shop. You mentioned that. Where were the MCs at? Do you remember like some of those initial spots performing and people taking to it?
Um, yeah, 1515,
Mhm.
that was a place, it was another place, um, like, maybe up the street from 1515, uh, they had a cafe called Pour Me
Mhm.
Cafe. It was kinda like a coffee spot.
Coffee house. Mhm.
Yeah, that was a good place. Then, it was a spot in, Hamtramck after, the hip hop shop kinda, faded. It was called the Lush Lounge,
Mhm.
and a lot of cats was performing up there. Um, and then, wherever we would, like, what I'm saying, just put shows on.
Okay.
Mhm.
So like I guess that crew, the Inner C, what was it like? And how long were you all like performing and what was it like watching, I'm guessing, as you all start a hip hop circle develop and then definitely that relationship with Dilla, um, and watching Slum and the Almighty Dreadnoughts come to life um
Yeah, shout out to Dreadnoughts.
and so many other crews.
Um, well, I mean, it was kinda like one of those things where we was, like, one of the recording we was, like, the people that I guess that folks looked at and said, "Oh, they did it theyself."
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because that goes back to the entrepreneurial side,
From your father even knowing.
right?
Mhm.
And him having the capital to be like, "Oh, this is what you wanna do? Alright, well, this is how you do it." You go because he had been working with the artist previously. So he was like, "I," you know what I'm saying, "get y'all in the studio. Once you get some songs recorded, then we gonna go down to disc makers, go to Ohio. We gonna get them pressed up. You know what I'm saying? We gonna come back and then you gonna start distributing them. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? And that was kind of like our end of it, where we was putting out our own product. Everything that's been released has been independent.
So, were you working the deals for consignment? Were you selling the records?
We
How did
was
you work
we
that?
was doing consignment, we was doing wholesale,
Mhm.
you know. Yeah, just putting the stuff all up in the stores everywhere.
And that was the crew itself. So you all were so for people that know consignment was when you have records, you would you would take like let's say 20 records and you would leave the records there and the consignment would be that you come back, check the inventory and it's like, okay, it's 10 left. So give me the money off of the
Yeah.
10 that sold. And that's checking the inventory, going back and forth. Usually, this is like what a lot of the record company industry would be doing itself, but working that would be independently. You would have to do it yourself. So you all were doing
Mhm.
that as the artist at the time, which
Yeah.
is for show independent.
Yeah, yeah. So, people were seeing that, and, I think that we actually were the ones that started people making serious radio intros for, like, shows and things like that. Like, it was always something fun and goofy, but when we came, we did something like, this could have been a song,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? And it's like, we did one for B Love, we did, who else we did? We did, like, Mark the Sparks. Mark the Sparks, um, he had, one that I did, the track for, and Super MC rapped over it.
Hmm.
Uh, that track was banging, you know what I mean? But it's just the fact that when we did that, I noticed, like, a lot of other radio, shows was getting, like, really into what they was doing as far as not just making something gimmicky or funny, you know what I'm saying? Or kinda okay. They was really like, going hard. So I think that we was the first ones that actually did that, um,
Okay.
for the city, you know what I mean?
For sure, for sure. And I want to speak to this too because, he's been a guest on the show. He's somebody that I've had a hell of a relationship, and this ain't necessarily the forum, but you spoke to it. But I want to address this directly just so people know. And it was Lord knows what online. The tragedy that happened with Super MC, um, it was very tragic, and it'll be another time that I think that I want to unpack and fully address that, but as far as
Yeah,
the
it's
artistry
awful.
that he put into hip hop, whether infamous or famous or whatever, his legacy in it is just so connected to a lot in Detroit, and definitely Highland Park hip hop. Um, uh, and I
Well,
just want to speak. I
yeah,
just want to say
I
that.
wanna say that, mental health is definitely, we always talk about it, but, that was kinda like our wake up call, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying, in the community
Yeah.
that, people could be looking okay on the surface, but, like how they say those ducks be paddling like crazy, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying, and it was a awful thing that happened, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying, all the way around, you know?
Most definitely, and I'm glad a lot of the organizing that Kalima's been doing and has for a while, and Nikki D, around healing in our community for sisters in need of that is there and very active. So I just want to stop there for a
Mhm.
moment to honor, and then now we get back to more of some of the discussions of this creativity, and you move more into art because I don't even know if you remember, we met years ago, but I've always known more so from the production and studio and engineering as
Right.
somebody in sound. That's what it was always said, that
Mhm.
studio sound, P Groove is one of those people. When did like you start getting this label as a guy that pieces together the music and engineering so much?
Well, I didn't know that I was an actual production engineer,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? But it's like, I guess it's just, one of them things that I grew into as far as just like learning what it was and having access to the technology and understanding the technology. Like, I literally came into the game at the end of Reel to Reels and was introduced to ADATs and from ADATs into hard disk recording. So Cakewalk, um, all that stuff, MIDI, all of this stuff was like stuff that I was um learning as it was coming out and I had access to it early. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So once I stopped going to studios and figured out like, oh, I could do this in my basement, and we started doing a lot of stuff like that. Like once I got my own MPC and, like I said, I got a sampler, and I started doing like, a lot of experimenting at the house because it's very back in the day, going to the studio was like,
Expensive as
yeah, it
hell.
was really expensive. I mean, just to pay for the stuff to record on,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? That was like hundreds of dollars,
Yeah.
right? And then, you end up booking, you know what I'm saying, a couple 10-hour blocks, you know what I'm saying? You coming out some money.
And also, so people kind of get an understanding of it. It's hard to think about it, especially if you're making music now. And I mean, really, you may just be able to pull this
Yeah.
out and
Technology is
make a
wonderful,
whole
ain't it?
everything. But at that time in the 80s, 90s, studios were way more set up for bands to come record, especially like the best studios. And I went to the disc recording school myself. So like
Mhm.
people would be like, yo, I'm in Studio A. And Studio A is set up for like, I mean, you got a band or you just rapping. So like it wasn't a lot of like music production for hip hop starts developing at the pace of hip hop itself being an industry that like what Heavy D said. It was like early on, you had to present that you were a good rapper and that rap was something that would be around and worth listening to.
Right.
So like the production of it and the techniques of it it's coming to life as we're watching it live from the 80s to the 90s, and that's like, I think the 90s and the early 2000s is really the cornerstone of what hip hop production really starts getting pieces. But before that, you're taking instruments and recording devices that were really designed for lack of a better term, Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey, but you rapping on it. Whereas now so much is so hip hop slanted, it is so different now.
Yeah.
So learning how to do this for rap is so different. Even like an MPC 2000, one of the devices that I got
Mhm.
that for sampling. And now if you get an MPC, the whole concept right now, like an MPC 1000 that can connect to a computer and everything, it's set up for you to make hip hop. This is not what I
Yeah.
think a lot of that equipment was at the time.
No,
You
not at
needed
all.
somebody like you to come to the studio with you to know, all right, how are we gonna do this and truncate? So like you get a sample and you like, oh, I like that part of the Isley Brothers song. You have to know like when to start it, when to stop it, how to loop it and play it. And I think one of the interesting things with Dilla especially was like he would play back the samples on different pads of it and everything, as opposed to like quantization and like getting things to sync all the same, which creates different rhythms in the music. But as much as I'm saying that's a Dilla style, that's like almost like a Detroit hip hop style.
Well, actually, what's interesting about that is, his signature drum pattern. And this
Yeah.
is I found this out not too long ago because I was talking about this with uh, my boy Reg, and um, his style of that drumming that came from my partner Jazilla.
Mm,
And see Jazilla, and this is like how creativity is like,
it
what I'm saying?
flows.
It just happens and you never know. It just happens. But anyway, we was doing a commercial
Mhm.
for the restaurant
Mm,
over Amp House.
wow.
Yeah, and it was this song that, we was rapping about macaroni and cheese and
That's
all the good
funny.
stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
But my partner, his drum pedal, his kick drum pedal, it was something was wrong with it where he had to loosen it to where either he had hit it and it'd come early or it'd come late. But either way, he had to play it in a way, and it was like the rhythm was that off on rhythm,
Mhm.
and that's where what I'm saying
The
Dilla
pattern
picked up
creates.
that feel.
Wow.
Yeah,
Ain't that something?
yeah, from a broken, what I'm saying, kick pedal.
Ain't that something?
Yeah, so shout out Jazilla.
Alright, so, like, this is, like, that feel of you being in the studio knowing all of this stuff and learning how to mic the drums how you want it for hip hop and get that sound, and you also did it with hardware and software, meaning, like, at one point in time, all of that stuff in your computer that you doing music with,
Yeah, it was analog, right?
it was all analog hardware, like, you would walk into a studio and it almost looked like it's hard to even explain. It would look like a lot of stacked up digital things for, like, different devices for different effects, and they would be bringing in microphone
Yeah,
cords and
you
syncs and
have rack
stuff.
mounts.
Yeah, yeah.
You have whole racks and stuff like that. I remember when I was mixing Fat Cat first record a, a a day with the homies and what was that other record? But it was the first one on Payday. You
Mhm,
remember that label?
mhm.
Um, what was that record though? It escapes me, but yeah, we was telling um the engineers to bring us all the what I'm
All
saying,
the racks.
racks in and stuff. We was going through all this stuff like that and just going crazy. And yeah, I knew how to do all that stuff. So it was like, yeah, it was pretty dope. You know what I'm saying? Just that was just a moment where everything kind of like came together. You know what I'm saying?
So during this time, in this just field of hip hop and what
Mhm.
you're enjoying and having that appreciation, um, what's your take on the industry kind of coming together? Because also during this time, this as this continues like from the '90s to 2000s, clearly the elephant in the room for hip hop for Detroit hip hop becomes Eminem and
Mhm.
D12 and what happens with Proof and all of them. And rest in peace,
Yeah.
P. Where's your state of mind now as more attention is coming to this Detroit hip hop scene?
Just steady, you know what I'm saying, releasing music, you know. We had got with Submerge. You familiar with Submerge? So
Mhm.
Mike Banks, him and Jeff Mills, they actually was key in my first actual record
Mm.
being released. It was Sleepy D
Mhm.
rapping over a track, and it was called Drop the Funk. And I say in '99, after, Mike and Jeff went separate ways, Mike, and Jeff, they started Underground Resistance, and then Jeff went on ahead overseas and he blew up, and now he's, Jeff
Yeah.
Mills, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then, Mike Banks is, still like the leader of the resistance, Underground Resistance. We came back together in '99. Like, this is, from '89, like, to '99. Like, I had needed a distribution, and he was like, "Yeah, well, come on and, put some stuff together and I'll distribute it for you." So it was more like I was still just, working on
A lot of
just
the
having
production and
having
just being in
fun,
hip hop.
yeah, and
Yeah.
just it wasn't really one of those things. It was like cool to see that, the light was being shined on Detroit, like even right now, you know what I'm
It's
saying?
a different emergence of it. Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, I love it. I love the fact that, okay, Detroit is like the home of hip hop now.
Mhm.
That being, whatever that is now, because it's
Yeah.
crazy how, the game is, and they done snatched all the ways of really making money out of it.
Yeah.
But still, if you got a passion for it and you got a love for it, you can make, a living.
So with that, as we get closer to a close and just still so many other stories, is there anything you want to share in your hip hop story before I ask about right now what you working on?
Um, I would just say, well, be creative. That's the thing. Creativity over competition.
Okay. I love it.
Never compete, because as soon as you compete, that's when you lost. So just be who you are, and if you create the way you create, it's bound to be, some people that's gonna actually enjoy what you do just as much as you enjoy it.
Respect.
Mhm.
Respect. All right. So now, what you working on now?
Well, I'm working on a instrumental project,
Mhm.
um, and I'm doing a lot of remixes with, Mike, and I got like some stuff in the works with Aisha, and Piper, her new label.
Mhm.
We found hip hop.
Yeah.
So, besides that, just staying in the studio, helping young producers, maybe get to the road a lot faster without going through a lot of hitting a lot of walls. Showing them some shortcuts.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Things like that.
All right. So now the classic Detroit is different question.
Mhm.
Your very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
Uh, I got a Jeep Wagoneer. I think it was like a '89.
Okay.
It had the wood grain on it or whatever.
Oh, man. What year you get it?
I got it in '89.
Oh, man. Oh, I'm sure everybody wanted to ride with you
Well,
from
no, they actually was, your girl, Nikki D, Chaos and them, they was calling me, the paper boy
Uh-huh.
because it looked like the car you ride around deliver papers.
Hilarious. Hilarious.
Not the kind of paper boy we would think, you know what I'm
Hilarious. I'm
saying?
sure everybody wanted to ride, I'm sure, because it's like just having wheels. All right.
Yeah.
So you remember the first place you went when you got it?
No.
Okay. All right. So now I'm gonna ask second question. You're the DJ at the end of the fireworks. Woodward Jefferson. Get to play 2 songs. What songs you playing?
You said the DJ at the
At
fireworks?
the end of the fireworks, you get to play 2 songs. You have Woodward and Jefferson. What songs you playing?
Um, it's a Stevie Wonder song. I can't remember the name of it though. That sucks.
Which one?
It's one that touched me so deep.
Mm.
But you actually made me want to go look for it now so I can listen to it and see if I still get that same feeling.
Okay.
That one and um Keep On Moving by Soul to Soul.
All right. And last question. You could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
Amp,
Why?
because you know, Woodward is so important, and it's like a landmark, and it's kind of like one of those places where if you get lost, if you find Woodward, you can actually like maybe find your way back home.
You got that right.
So yeah, that's kind of like what I think, and now I'm reflecting on it, what Amp was to a lot of us.
Yeah, man. Rest in peace. Love Amp always. P
Yeah.
Gruv. Thank you so much for coming in studio.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Peace and prosperity.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.